impact your ability to rent a car. It can impact your ability to get a credit card. It can impact your ability to even get like in-store financing, or maybe even get a job, right? So let's look at that. What is credit? Simplest way I can possibly describe it, credit is your ability to borrow money, okay? A credit report is a record of all the times you have borrowed money in the past. So who in here has a loan of some sort? Maybe it's a car, student loan, or a credit card, or anything like that? Okay, great. So you have a credit report with those things on it. Credit score is your risk rating based on what's in the credit report. So it's like this person has 2 credit cards, and they pay on time, or they don't pay on time, blah, blah, blah. We're going to take all that information, put a grade on it, grade, a score, and that's your credit score. So, how in the world do people give you loans to begin with? Let's look at that. Let's pretend that you guys are the lenders for a second. Let's pretend you put something expensive up on Craigslist. Okay? Anybody bought and sold on Craigslist before? Isn't it the best? Oh, it's awesome. So you put something up on Craigslist, someone wants to buy it from you. Now, what's the ideal situation? They come to you with all the cash, you give them the thing, everybody leaves happy, boom. What if they said, hey, you know what, new plan, how about you give us the thing, but we just give you some of the money, and then like we promise to pay you back, a little bit more every month for the next 6 months. Would anybody give that deal to a stranger? No, you'd be like, I'm sorry, try again when you have all the cash, right? But now that you think about your friends, would anybody give that deal to a really good friend? Maybe. Some of you were like, no, you don't know my friends, like that would not happen, right? But truly, I want you to think, what is the difference in your head between those deals? What would you want to know about somebody before you give them a thing and let them pay you for it later? I mean, what do you think? Let's think basic level. What would you want to know about this person? Their name, all their identifying information, right? You'd probably want to know where you can go find them, right? Good. What else?
History, like if they've done it before.
Have they done it before? Have you borrowed money before? And then what specifically about that?
Do you pay it off or?
Did you pay it? Yeah, like, how has this worked out for other people that you've made this deal for, right? Any other things? About their lives. The job, right? Like if you don't have money now, that's great, but like are you going to get money? Do you work, So remember, lenders are the same way. If you go to the bank for a loan, any loan, okay, they're gonna wanna know how much you make. Now remember, they wanna know that to make sure that you can make the monthly payments, okay? They wanna know how much you owe to other people. They want to know what assets you have. Now, this is a big one that gets a lot of confusion, okay? Because sometimes, like, people will go in for a home loan, okay? And they'll say, hi, I need to borrow some money. And the banker will say, well, I see you don't have any savings in the bank. And the person's always like, well, yeah, maybe you didn't hear me. I have no money, that's why I'm here. I want a loan from you, right? Why do you think a banker would want to see that you've got at least a little bit of savings in the bank to get a loan? If you lose your job, how are you going to make that payment, right? They want to see that you've got a little bit of a buffer and you're not living paycheck to paycheck. Job stability, okay? So maybe you were working, maybe you've been working one job for the past year. That's good, that's stable. Versus, I've been working this for a week, this for a week, this for a week. And then finally, your credit report. So what is in that credit report is only one piece of a whole picture. And I bring that up now because we see this a lot at the bank, right over here at the MidFirst. People will come in to get a car loan and they'll say, oh, I have great credit. And they'll say, well, where do you work? How much do you make? Oh, I don't have a job. Oh, well, what do you have in savings? Well, I don't really have any in savings, but I've got great credit. Does great credit alone get you a loan? No, so remember, it's a whole picture. So who in the world keeps track of your credit? Well, luckily, each bank doesn't have to do it individually. These three companies, TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian, these are called the credit bureaus, okay? So the credit bureaus keep track of all of your identifying information. Everything that we just talked about, who you are, where you live, your social security number, all of those things are kept track of by these three companies. Your credit history. Every time you apply for a credit card, even if you don't get the credit card, these three companies know that you applied for one. Does that kind of make sense? Okay. That's what an inquiry is. Anytime somebody checks into your credit, it's called an inquiry, and those things are kept track of on your credit report. Here's what's not in a credit report. Criminal background, medical information, bank account information. The reason I put bank account information up there is a lot of people confuse their bank and their credit card, all right? Look, you guys have checking accounts, right? If you're overdrafting on your checking account, or maybe you don't have as much in there as you'd like, that's not great, but that's not your credit. Those are separate things, okay? Criminal background, that's another thing. So a lot of times employers pull credit to get a job. And people get all nervous. They're like, oh my gosh, are they going to know about that silly, stupid thing I did when I was 16 years old? Like, is that going to be in there? No, totally separate. So, who would want to see this document? Can you think of a situation where someone would want to see your credit report? What do you think? Maybe you've encountered one before. Anybody been asked to have a credit pulled before? Not yet. It's coming. What do you think? We already went over some. Shout them out to me. Applying to get a credit card. There you go. What else?
Renting an apartment.
Renting an apartment. Absolutely. What else?
Insurance.
Any kind of loan, right? I mean, yeah. So look, so lenders are the big one, right? You want to get a car, you want to get a house, you want to get whatever. That's lenders. But also employers, guys. A lot of people, a lot of jobs will ask to pull credit. So as an example, I work for a bank. You better believe they had my credit pulled before they hired me. But you know what? My husband, as an example, doesn't work for a bank. And they wanted to pull his credit before he got hired for a job. Why do you think that is? I mean, put yourself in their shoes. If you were a boss and you're hiring someone, why might you want to see their credit report?
Kind of know who you're hiring, like.
Do they pay their stuff on time?
Yeah.
Right? You just it's a way to kind of gauge how responsible somebody is. Yeah. Apartment rentals. Okay, so when you guys get your first apartment, a lot of people will say, you need this credit score, we need to get a copy of your credit report. But then there's other things like utilities, insurance, court orders. All of these kinds of people might want to look at your credit. Now, here's the thing. Not every organization is treated the same. So for example, when you're going for a car loan, oh my gosh, they want to see everything in your credit file. They want to see every little thing. That's called hard credit pull. Right? Hard credit pull. An insurer or maybe even a cell phone. Has anybody ever you sign up for a new cell phone plan and they say, oh, well, we have a credit check as part of this. Has anybody experienced that before? And you're like, what are you even talking about? That's a soft pull. So a cell phone company doesn't need to see your whole detailed history. They just kind of want to look in your file. Does everything look okay with this person? Okay, great. That's called a soft credit pull. A hard credit pull will lower your credit score by a couple points. A soft credit pull will not. So it's just important to know that there is a difference between those things. Having good credit can open doors. Man, you get your loans approved, you get lower interest rates, you can save money, you can actually be able to own a home. But it closes those same doors. People who make credit mistakes when they're young, maybe they're unable to purchase a home or a car, or they're unable to rent an apartment. They have large utility deposits. So that means when you go to turn your water on to your new apartment, or you turn your electricity on to a new apartment, if they look at your credit and they see that you don't pay stuff back on time, they might be like, you know what, we think that you're probably not going to pay your water bill, so we're going to ask for a $300 deposit up front. And you might be thinking, but I don't have $300, right? It's a problem. It's a problem that people with bad credit face. Okay, so before we go further, let's just do a quick little check-in. So true or false, your future father-in-law or any of your friends can check your credit report online. False, right? So I don't want you to think that this is information that's just out there for anybody. It's not. You have to be an institution like a bank or some kind of lender to be able to access this information. A credit report contains information on how you handle your checking account. True or false? False. Remember, we hope that you're using your checking account responsibly, but they're not linked together. You totally don't need to worry about credit until after you graduate. True or false? False. In fact, a lot of people make credit mistakes in college, and then they get out of college and they realize, oh, I didn't really realize how long this lasts in my life. Bad credit can affect your interest rate. True or false? True, absolutely. Okay, so we've talked a lot about credit scores. Here they are up here, all right? A credit score ranges from 300 to 850, and it's a 3-digit number. So if you've got low 700s and above, you've got what's considered to be very good credit. So if you pull your score and you see that, that's great credit. Even high 6s or mid 6s is pretty good credit. It's these scores down here where you might find yourself not getting approved for a loan, or having a super high interest rate on a loan, or a really high down payment. Okay, so let's look at that $20,000 car scenario again. Okay, so maybe you go into the bank and you want a $20,000 loan for your car. If you've got great credit, they might say, absolutely, we can give you $20,000. But if you've got really bad credit, they might say, gosh, you know what? I'm not comfortable lending you $20,000, so I'm going to lend you $10,000, and you have to come up with the other $10,000, and that's called a down payment. Does that kind of make sense? How that would fluctuate based on how good your credit is? I should also note that these letters are not official things, guys. Please do not go to your bank and say, as per Emily Schwartz, I have B- credit. Like, that's not a real thing. It's just, I thought this would be helpful in letting you see how it works. So how in the world do they come up with those scores? Well, here's how. The biggest, most important factor is, do you pay your stuff on time or not? So for example, let's say you have one credit card right now. Do you pay that credit card on time every month? If you do, well, that's that 35% payment history. Okay. Amounts owed. So whether you owe a lot or a little bit affects your credit. This is probably the most important for the people in this room, length of history. A lot of people think they've got great credit because they haven't done anything bad. Well, remember, credit is also about building good behaviors. So for example, if you don't have a loan or you don't have a credit card or anything like that, you haven't built any credit. You don't have this length of credit history. If you've got a credit card for 2 months, great, well you have 2 months of credit history. A lot of places like to see at least 1 year of credit history to be able to track those on-time payments. Just paying your bills, like a lot of people think, oh, I've got great credit because I pay my cell phone bill on time. Well, that's great. I mean, you're a responsible person, but that doesn't have anything to do with credit. That's a bill, whereas credit is someone lending you money. New credit? So has anybody ever been at shopping somewhere and they say, oh, hey, do you want to sign up for a credit card today and save 7% on your purchase or whatever? You guys know what I'm talking about? Well, if you say yes to all of those like within 1 week, that's a lot of new credit inquiries on your file. And so somebody might look at that and go, ooh, that looks a little worrisome that you were applying for that many credit cards in that short period of time. And the same thing with types of credit. So it's good to have a good variety. So like if you've got a student loan and one credit card, like that's a good variety of loans that you're paying back. All of these things together come up with those 3 letters, or those 3 numbers. So, how long do they keep your information? Well, that's a good one to know, right? So those 3 companies, the credit bureaus, anytime you apply for a credit card, they know about it for 2 years. They keep it on your file for 2 years.
I'm doing today.
Hello.
You have a sign-up sheet.
So that means that if you apply for a Macy's credit card, and then a year and a half later you apply for a car loan, the person at the bank will be able to look at your credit report and say, oh, I see a year and a half ago you applied for a Macy's card. Right. This is the one that I want you to pay a lot of attention to. Late payments stay on there for 7 years. So here's a super common scenario. A second-year college student might get a little bit overwhelmed with all their payments, and they get a credit card to help them out. They use it for a couple months, charge up a bunch of stuff, and then kind of forget about it. If you miss those payments, or you are late with those payments, it doesn't just affect you right now. It stays on your report for 7 years. So that means anybody who wants to give you a loan in the next 7 years is going to say, oh man, what happened when you were a sophomore in college? You see how that could happen though, right? Like you get your first car, you're like, ah, whatever, it doesn't matter. Well, yeah, it matters. Collections, same thing. So when I say get sent to collections, do you know what I mean by that? Sort of. Hopefully none of you do because it's never happened before. So let's say that you, okay, let's use the cell phone bill example. Let's say you pay your cell phone bill on time, every month, right? But then 1 month you stop paying and Verizon starts getting a little upset with you, okay? So they're gonna call you every month and say, hey, where's my money? You owe me money, you owe me money, you owe me money. Well, one day Verizon's gonna get sick of doing that. So they're going to take your debt, your file, and give it to what's called a collections agency. So there are people whose whole job it is to call people up every day and bug them to pay off your debts. Okay. Super fun job. If that happens to you, that's called getting sent to collections, and that is on your file. And that's a more severe thing than just being late. In fact, I think you'll notice when you start looking for apartments, a lot of ads will say something like, we require a credit check and you need this score or higher and no collections judgments for the past 3 years or something like that. That's not uncommon to hear. So pay your stuff on time. Closed accounts will last for 10 years. So that means, like, let's say you have a credit card and you close it up and you're like, okay, I want to just kind of forget that ever happened. That stays on your file for 10 years. Any questions about this concept? I know, it's kind of like, wow. The credit reporting cycle, here's kind of how it works. You know, you might go into a bank or any place. It really doesn't have to be a bank. And just apply for the credit. So whether that's a credit card or a loan or something, they say 1 second, turn around, pull your credit. It actually only takes a few seconds, guys, to pull your credit file. If they like what they see, they can say, absolutely, let's get you going on this loan. I'd love to lend you some money. And then they report that to those 3 companies, Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian, those credit bureaus. And then they periodically report on it. So, hey, you know, just wanted to let you know, I lent Emily $10,000 last week and she's paying on time, it's great. Or, hey, I lent Emily that money and turns out she's a total delinquent and she's not paying her stuff at all. So, you know, put some negative marks in her file. Okay. That is one side of credit. I want to show you another side of credit that doesn't necessarily affect your score, but it big time affects your pocketbook, okay? So sometimes people use credit cards to afford things that they can't afford. That's the problem with a credit card, isn't it? If you've got a debit card, can you spend money you don't have? No. Not really, right? If you've got a credit card, can you spend money you don't have? Yeah, absolutely. And that's what happens with people with credit cards. I'm going to give you an example of why that's bad. Let's say you want to go on some awesome spring break vacation, right? Or I mean, insert whatever thing is appealing to you in here. And it costs $1,500. Well, you might think, well, I don't have $1,500. But someone might say, ooh, just put it on a credit card. You can totally spend money you don't have. It's great. Well, that interest rate on that credit card is going to be really high. Like, let's say it's 21%. Okay. So you go on the trip. It's great. Then Visa or MasterCard or whoever wants their money back. Now, remember, if you pay them, if you write a check for $1,500, you paid it on time at the end of the month. Do you owe any of that interest? No, that's the responsible way to use a credit card, all right? But if you don't have that money, they're gonna put you on a payment plan. They're gonna say, oh, you know, $30 a month, that's all you gotta pay. On the surface, that seems cheap, doesn't it? Yeah, on the surface, you're like, oh, $30 like for a vacation, that's great. You're going to be paying that for 10 years. 10 years, guys, that's crazy. You'll have spent over $2,000 in interest. Your total trip more than doubled. Just because you didn't have that money up front, you could have gone on 2 trips for that money, right? But that's because you're just making the minimum payments. Guys, I don't care what kind of loan you have. If it's a student loan, if it's a mortgage, if it's a car loan, if you pay more than the minimum, it will take you less time to pay off and you will pay a lot less interest. Watch this. What if you found an extra $70 in your budget to put towards that? So instead of just paying the minimum, you're putting $70 extra towards that. Look what that does to your payoff time. You just knocked 8.5 years off your credit card payment time because you found $70 extra. Look how much it saves you in interest. And guys, again, this is any loan. So like, let's say you have a student loan. Anybody have any kind of student loan right now? A couple of you? Okay. So let's just say, for example, that you get some wonderful job in the world and they give you a holiday bonus because you're awesome. Why wouldn't they give you a holiday bonus, right? And you're thinking, man, what do I do with this money? Well, if you put it towards your debt, you're going to end up saving money later because you're going to not have to pay as much in interest. I know that's really unexciting to do when you have money, but it saves you so much later. None of this up here affects your credit score. And that's the big thing I want to point out. Some people think, oh, well, as long as I make the minimum payments, my credit score doesn't go down, so who cares? Well, you should care because you're going to be spending a ton of extra money. Here's what people don't realize. You are building credit the same way as long as you make an on-time payment. You could put a stick of gum on your credit card every month and pay it off, pay that dollar off at the end of the month, and you are building credit. Just like you are if you're doing this disastrous situation, but in the first situation, you're saving a ton of money too, aren't you? Right? Just kind of always keep that in mind. All right, let's do another check-in. All right, we didn't talk about this, but it's funny. So filing bankruptcy will improve my credit score because it gives me a clean slate. True or false? Yeah, does that even sound like it should be right? I mean, come on. Now, some people, guys, get so overwhelmed with debt. They owe so much money to so many people that they can file what's called bankruptcy. Have you guys heard of this before? Okay. Bankruptcy is essentially a type, you go to court and you file this, you basically put your hands up and say, look, I got nothing, I don't have this money, I'm declaring bankruptcy, I need the court's help on this. And they work with you to try to reduce some of the debts, and they allocate other money elsewhere, and it's a big process. This goes on your report for a long time. And a lot of people will not even lend you any money until that bankruptcy is filed off. If my credit score is high, I'm automatically going to get approved for a loan. True or false? False. Remember in the beginning how we talked about all those things? And guys, I'm friends with some of the bankers here at this MidFirst, and they tell me all the time, at least once a week, a student comes in and asks for a car loan. And they have their credit report. They're saying, see, I've got great credit, but they don't have a job. They don't have credit history. They just started this out. Remember, guys, it's a big thing that you need. Why do you think they want to see that you have a job before they'll lend you money?
So then you can pay the payments.
To know that you can pay the payments, right? And in fact, guys, not only do they just want you to have a job, they're going to look at what's called a debt to income ratio, right? So let's say that, just using round numbers, let's say that you make $1,000 a month and you want to get a car that would require a $500 payment a month. Here's your income, here's your debt. 500 out of 1,000. That would be what's called a 50% debt to income ratio. That's too high. They're not going to let you get that car because they know that you can't afford that car. Okay. That kind of makes sense. Have you heard people talk about that before? Debt to income? That's what they mean. I will also tell you that if you have a student loan, someone bring it?
Is it?
Okay.
Oh, man.
No, it's okay, it's okay. So if you have a student loan, that payment that you have to pay to the student loan counts against your debt to income ratio. So that's why you hear people say, oh my gosh, I can't get approved for a house because of that student loan. Well, they look at how much you make, and then they look at how much you're paying towards your student loan every month, and they subtract that from what you make. So using the $1,000 example, right? Let's say you go in and say, hey, I make $1,000 a month, what kind of car can you give me? And the bank will say, oh, I know you make $1,000 a month, but I see that you pay $200 a month to your student loans. So in our eyes, you actually only make $800 a month. Do you see how that works? They have to subtract that out. So that's why you got to think of those student loan repayments in your future. So lenders report your loan transactions to those 3 credit bureaus, true or false? True, that's how they find out about it, absolutely. Credit inquiries can lower my score, true or false? True. Remember, anytime someone has to do a hard pull on your credit to look at it, that will lower your score by a few points. Now, I don't want you to think that that means you could never apply for a loan, ever. Here's the thing. If you go apply for your first credit card, yeah, your credit score is going to go down a couple points, but it's going to go back up in a few months and you're going to be fine. However, if your Tuesday activity is you apply for a new credit card every week, well, then that's really going to start to hurt you, right? So if you do it responsibly, it's not a problem. If you do it irresponsibly, you're going to start to see those problems. So a lot of people at this point think, okay, so I need credit. How in the world do I build it? Well, you start small. I would say step 1 that's not even up here is make sure you can handle your checking account. Before, like, checking account is step 1, credit card is step 2. Get this figured out before you even jump up here, okay? So if you know that you're always covering all your bills out of your checking account, you're never concerned that there's not enough money, you're never overdrafting, then you're in a position to start thinking, okay, maybe I can have 1 credit card to start building this profile. Now, when you do get that credit card, I like to make it super boring. I like to just get a credit card and put 1 thing on it every month. And I like to make that gas, because nobody overspends on gas. You know? Like, that's not an impulse buy, like it is what it is. So if you have a credit card, you put 2 tanks of gas a month on it, that's maybe, $50 or whatever, and you pay that off every month, you are building credit. In fact, you're building credit the same as if you charged it up with $10,000 and paid that off every month. So I'd rather build credit by not spending a ton of money, but that's just me. Store a credit account. So let's say that you apply for a credit card but you got denied. That's actually kind of common. A lot of people get denied for their first credit card because they have no credit history. Right, isn't that so annoying? You're like, but I need it to get it, but I need it to get it. What? It's frustrating. A stored credit account can sometimes be a good example. So like, as an example, let's say that you need something for school. Like, let's say you need a computer for school. Or let's say, one of the tires blew out on your car and you need to get the tires replaced. Those kinds of things. If they offer you in-store financing that reports to the credit bureaus, sometimes that financing is easier to get and you're building credit. Boom, just like that. Small loan with a cosigner. So a lot of times your first car loan or even like your first apartment, you have to get someone to cosign on it with you. Now, remember what you're asking people to do though. You're asking, a lot of people go to their parents for the first time, okay? I will be super honest with you, my parents did not cosign with me. They did not want to cosign with me on my first car loan when I was like 20. Because they just didn't want to take that risk. Think about it, they're taking their whole history that they've built and putting it on you, and whether you pay your stuff back or not. And actually, I was kind of glad that happened, that they said no, because I don't like when my parents are all up in my business, and if you are co-signed with them, you better believe they're calling you every day. Did you pay your car? How about now though? But did you pay it now? Well, what about now? And you can't blame them, right? Because it's their history. A secured credit card with a small limit can also be a great thing. Now, I'll be honest with you, this is how I built my credit. It's just from a personal example, this is what I did. So a secured card or a secured loan it's not like a normal credit card. So like, let's say you get one at the MidFirst right here, or any bank will offer this to you. You put some money in a savings account, and that's like your collateral, okay? They secure the credit card against that. So let's say it's a $300 credit card, for example. You put $300 in the savings account, and then you go spend your credit card, just like normal. That money stays there, but you spend and pay and whatever. But if you were to stop paying on your credit card one day, they don't have to really worry about it because you already put that $300 as collateral in that savings account, and they can just get it. They're not worried that they're not going to get their money. Does that kind of make sense why that would be an easier thing to start off with? So you can do that as a loan or a card, and it's a way a lot of people build credit for the first time. Having apartment and utilities in your own name, even something as simple as that can be super important. Like, for example, let's say you're in a roommate situation and you've been living with someone since you were, until you were 26. And then you're 26 and you want to go get your first apartment by yourself. Well, when you go to turn the water on, they might say, oh, well, you know what, I don't see any record of you ever paying a water bill before. We're a little concerned that you don't have a history. We need to charge you a big deposit. And you might say, well, what are you talking about? I've had water in. But if your roommate was the one paying the bill, they don't know you. So make sure you've got some stuff in your own name also. Once you've started establishing credit, guys, the most important thing, I mean, seriously, if you take one thing away from this, you gotta make every payment on time. No excuses, you gotta do it. You absolutely have to make every payment on time. It's not a joke. One of the biggest things that happen is people's first student loan payment. Because it's something you're not used to paying, right? And you think, oh my gosh, now it's this new thing. Oh, well, maybe they'll forgive me the first time. Guys, when that loan is due, you gotta start paying it right away. Use credit wisely. Remember the gas card, guys. Once you do have that card, use it just to build up your profile. You don't want to be spending on stuff you can't afford. Only swipe that credit card if you know you have enough money in your bank account to cover it at the end of the month. And here's another little trick. Keeping your balance at about 30% of your total limit really helps build up your score. So for example, let's say you have a card that has a $1,000 limit on it. So that means you can spend up to $1,000 on that card. Well, even though you can technically spend up to $1,000, it makes you look better if you only spend $300 a month instead of $1,000. Keep it at about a third. That just makes you look more responsible. And avoid accumulating multiple cards. I mean, I know that those discounts are tempting. Yes, I would like to save 10% on my purchase today. Thank you, kind sir, right? But it's just not worth it. I recommend a lot of people, wherever you guys bank, I recommend that's where you start because they know you. It's not a place where you're gonna like go buy clothes and stuff, It's a great place to start. And then monitor your credit reports for any discrepancies. So, for example, has anybody in here seen their credit report before? Yeah? Okay. If you haven't, here's where you can go. Well, I should say, there's many places you could go. This is the site they have set up for this purpose, annualcreditreport.com. It will take you to all of the credit bureaus. You put in some of your information. Now, I will say, some of the security questions are like oddly specific. So if this is giving you troubles, don't fret about it. They just want to make super sure that it's you. Like, so they might say, as an example, have you ever had a loan of more than $10,000 or something like that? And you might be like, no. Well, that's the right answer. It's fine. But they're trying to make sure that they're only giving this information to you. The score costs money, but the report is free. I don't think it's a lot. Last time I checked, I want to say it was like $15-ish. But remember, you just have the report that has all of the detailed activities in it. Each of those bureaus is going to give you a separate report. So you can pull your Experian report in January, your Equifax report in April, and your TransUnion in like October, and then you never go more than a couple months without peeking into your credit. Why might you want to do that? Why might you want to constantly be kind of checking in on your credit report? What do you think? Anybody ever see that movie ID Theft a couple years ago? Oh gosh, it was more than a couple years ago. Times are marching by. ID theft is a huge problem. Because think about it. Your credit report is your good name, right? So a criminal or someone who doesn't have great credit and wants to get a job or wants to go get a home loan, they might be like, sure, I'm gonna pretend to be Emily Schwartz right now. Yeah, let's get her social security number. Oh, it's cool, I was digging through the trash in the back of her house and I found a document with her social on it, so it's fine, I'm her now. Totally happens, okay? So I wanna check my credit report and make sure that no loans or credit inquiries have happened in my name that I don't know about. They tell parents to check your kids. I bet if you haven't personally checked your credit, I bet your parents, when you were little, were checking it. It wouldn't shock me if a couple of you in here that was happening. Because kids are at a big risk for identity theft. You can imagine why, right? Like, because I mean, my 2-year-old daughter at preschool right now is not checking her credit report. I guarantee you that's not happening. But the criminals are banking on that, right? Like, because they've got 16 more years till she's 18, and that's a lot of time to be using her social before she knows about it. That's why you got to check people's stuff. Like, doesn't it just make you so sad about the world? All right, last quick quiz before we open it up for questions, okay? So, which factor contributes most to your score? Payment history or the types of credit that you use? Payment, right?
Payment.
It's the biggest way to make or break your credit, guys. Pay that stuff on time. When I pay off a bad debt, it's deleted from my credit report. True or false? False. False, because a lot of people realize that. Like, let's say they got sent to collections, you know, and they finally get in contact with the company, they make good on it. Well, it's going to show as a closed, you know, situation, but it's still going to be on there for 7 years. Good news is it matters less. Every year you get removed from it, it impacts your score less. I should order a free credit report even if I have no credit history. True or false? True.
True.
Right? Think about my little toddler, right? You never know who's trying to use your stuff. Like, not to scare you, but seriously, it's a thing. And also look for inaccuracies. Like, if your name is spelled wrong or they've got your wrong middle initial or something, that might not be a big deal now, but if you're going to apply for a home loan, that could be a big deal. So better get it fixed now when you got time. Because I'm sure you can imagine, it's not like you just call and say, hey, can you fix that? Great, thanks. Like, there's a process. I should open a credit card in all my favorite stores to build my credit and get discounts. True or false? False. Guys, I've heard people repeat this back to me though. They're like, well, if one credit card is good, then 5 credit cards must be better. No, that's not true. And also, if you're shopping at that store all the time, you know, gosh, I would hate for you to spend more just because you see that card in your wallet. But I get an extra 5% off, so I'm going to spend, you know, $100 that I wasn't going to spend to save 5. Woo-hoo. You know how that works, right? So just be careful about that. I don't want to leave you with no resources, so here's some things that I have. Everything we talked about today is in this flyer. So if you didn't get this little handout, it's over there on the chair, so grab one. The other thing that I brought for you is just so you can kind of go at your own pace. This online course, if you go to moneymoments.com/ASU, it's got a lot of the same information, which is more in depth. Because I know that credit is one of those things that you might have a lot of questions about. If you go to this link right here, you'll see all these topics. You can just click on credit and borrowing, and it'll take you to like, oh, here's a little video about credit scores. Here's how to improve my credit. Kind of a lot of the things we were talking about, but just at your own pace, and you can go through it on your own time.
Thank you.
I would recommend keeping this card in your wallet because right now, if you're not applying for credit cards and loans, this might seem like something you don't need, but I guarantee you, in like 6 months from now, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I wish I could have that presentation again because I don't understand any of this. Pull this up. It's a good resource to have on hand. Oh, and then of course, please take a pen. I have too many pens in my office and it's really bothering me. They do have these little weird blue plastic things on the tip, so if you're writing and you're like, that MidFirst pen is awful, it's not awful, it's just protected for your convenience. So there's that.
I have a question. Which would you recommend, like, how many store credit cards would you get? 1 to 2? You say not a lot of them.
Sure.
It's 1 and 2. Like, is there a
So
minimum?
I would start with one credit card and make sure you can handle that. Because honestly, unless you have a reason to have more than one, it's not really helping you in the way that a lot of people think it does. So I would start with one, make sure you can really use that well before you even consider getting a second one. Did that answer your question? Awesome, good. Any other questions?
Yeah, you have to build up the credit first.
Well, yeah, so that's the kind of thing that's a little tough. You do have to kind of have credit to get credit, but that's where we bring in those things like the secured loan or the secured credit cards or co-signing with somebody. You do have to start small, but that's why a lot of people wish, like they turn 30 and then they look back and they wish they had started younger because now they're older and they do want to go buy a house and they can't rewind the clock 2 years. It's a great point. Any other things I can help you guys with? Did this clear up some questions? I hope so. My biggest goal today is that if someone is having a conversation with you about credit, I just want you to have a baseline about it. You might not remember every little thing I said today, and that's totally fine. I just want you to feel like you know enough that you can ask questions, and that you don't feel embarrassed to ask questions that it might be stupid. Or if someone says something about your credit score, you can be like, yeah, I know what that is now. 300, 850. Yeah, ask me about it. I got it. Right? Cool. Yeah.
So if we haven't even started like with our credit or anything like that, what number does it actually start with?
Oh, that's actually a really good question. So if you were to pull your credit right now, you might see a pretty high score. Because if you don't have any credit, you could have a super high score. But or you'd never get approved because you don't have any history. It's the score and what's in the report. So just because you have a super high score, don't think that, yeah, awesome, right? It's that history and the score together.
One more question.
Yeah.
So the 10 years of keeping the information, I've never really heard of that before. But the chapter 7,
Yeah, so certain kinds of bankruptcy, they keep your information for 10 years, and certain kinds of bankruptcy, they keep it for 7 years. The main thing that people get concerned about with the 10 years is the closed accounts. So a lot of people, let's say they have a credit card in college, and they close that card. A lot of people are surprised to find out that the record of that card is still there 10 years from now. And that's one of the things that stays on your report the longest.
okay, now is that chapter 7? What's the chapter 7?
Chapter 7 is a kind of bankruptcy. Chapter 13 is another kind of bankruptcy.
Thank you.
Great, well, you know what, guys, I'm going to be up here for a minute while I pack up my things. So if you have something you want to discuss one-on-one, I'm happy to do that.